everyone, my name is Charlene Maines and I'm the founder of a charity called Choices for You. I must make it very clear that we're currently going through the charity commissions at the moment, so once we get that news of registration we'll be sure to let you know as soon as possible. Right, now over the last couple of weeks I have been sharing with you my own journey, which has been broken down into segments. So week 1 we spoke about child abuse and how this affects our education. Week 2 we spoke about domestic abuse and continuing the toxic cycles. Week 3 we spoke about long-term unemployment, how this affects our self-confidence, self-esteem, our self-belief. This week, week 4, we're going to be talking about disability and how that impacts our personal well-being. And then to conclude our series, week 5, which will be next week, we will be talking about the choices. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that one because it's going to be full of motivation, positivity. It's going to be great. So be sure to join us next week for our final video. So today we're going to be talking about disability and how it impacts our personal well-being. Now, again, as I've said in all other videos, I'm only talking from experience, from my own personal experience. So I can't comment or talk about others. This is just to help people who may be experiencing similar barriers and just to kind of raise awareness really about disability, about being a carer and actually how that impacts us, because I find not a lot of people do talk about the impact. So I'm going to be sharing my thoughts and feelings with you today. And yeah, hopefully it can help people to know that they're not on their own and there are people behind closed doors going through the exact same thing. Okay, let's go. So disability, I never really came across anyone with a disability before in my family. I myself didn't class myself as having a disability, so I didn't really pay too much attention. But in 2012, December 2012, my whole world changed when my son went in, who was 6 at the time, went in for an operation and they detected a heart murmur. He went in for a foot operation because he walked on the sides of his feet. And yeah, so his recovery was 3 months. We go back to the hospital in March 2013 and they wanted to check this heart murmur out, which completely I didn't really think about because, you know, he didn't get it diagnosed at birth. We've had no issues up until then, so I didn't really concern myself with that. All I was worried about is making sure that he was positive in his recovery because he was off school for 3 months with after having his both feet operated on. So as you can imagine, that was my main concern. So we go back to the hospital in March 2013 and they do a series of tests, ECG, echo, they do a physical characteristic test, you name it. And I remember sitting in the consultant's room and he said to me, we think he may have a syndrome called Marfan syndrome. That's M-A-R-F-A-N, Marfan syndrome. So as you can imagine, I was 28, 29 at this point and I was just like, what? You know, from a foot operation, you think he's got this condition called Marfan syndrome. And I just remember all this information being taken in but not fully processed. And I remember just saying, can he play football? Because I've been promising that young lad he can play football. And they said we need to determine what it is that he has, and just to confirm the syndrome in itself, because, you know, if he has got it, then he does have limited, you know, access to the contact sports due to the condition. So I'm like, okay, that's right, okay, that's going to be a problem, because I've been saying to that lad, you know, for 3 months he can play. So I remember going home with him and I just felt completely numb. It was like my whole world had been turned upside down. And I put the children to bed and did some research. I joined a couple of community groups on Facebook, but they were actually quite depressing. I had just been told this news and I didn't want to hear from people who were talking about death and, you know, the implications that they were going through and, you know, how it affected them. I just was not ready to process that yet. So, you know, I kind of was a bit down over the next couple of weeks. I obviously had all these thoughts going through my mind. I think one day I posted on Facebook late at night, I was obviously worried about it, saying I'd give my heart for my son tomorrow if he needed it, and you know, just that kind of mentality, because I was just thinking, my child is not well and I don't know how best to help him. So so couple of months later we get a quick diagnosis. It was all done really quickly through testing, blood tests at the genetics hospital in Southampton, and we were told that he had a severe form of Marfan's. So I was like, right, what do we need to do? I mean, we had to work with the cardiologist for his heart, the orthopedics for his feet, the ophthalmologist for his eyes, the OT, the physiotherapist, the GP, the paediatrician, the school, you name it. We were working with a range of professionals, and it was quite a scary time for me, because not only did my son have this condition, Marfan syndrome, we were also told that the parents needed to be tested. So I'm thinking, right, okay, deep in my heart, it's me. I've got long arms and I've got long legs and I've got some of the characteristics that I've been reading up about. It's definitely me. It can't be his dad. It's definitely me. So I didn't say that out loud. I guess I kind of buried that, hoping that it wasn't me, but I knew in my heart it was. So me and his father got tested. Obviously his dad's results came back as negative and mine came back as positive. So sorry, you can imagine the double whammy of test results coming through, and it was a scary time. I had no support. I was stuck in isolation. I didn't have anyone to reach out to. So not only did I have to worry now about my son, I had to also worry about myself. Being a lone parent, of course, I'm a very fierce mummy. I'm very overprotective, and you know, all I kept thinking was, oh my gosh, who's going to look after my children if anything was to happen to me? Because when I was reading up on the condition, it does say that awareness is really key, because some people do end up passing away in their 30s due to the aorta, and it was just didn't bear thinking about, because I was approaching my 30s and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you know, is my time going to be up? How long do I have left? That's what was going through my mind. So it was a really testing time for me and for us all as a family. We had constant hospital appointments. I had a daughter who thankfully was tested negative for the condition, because there is a 50-50 chance of passing it on to your children. Like I said, I didn't know. They think that I was a spontaneous at conception, so I then obviously passed it on to my son, but my daughter thankfully didn't have the condition. So with all my time being spent with my son at the hospital, I had another problem. So I had my daughter, who actually turned around and said to me one day, Mummy, I wish I had a poorly heart so I can come with you. And I'm thinking to myself, no, you don't, darling, trust me, you really don't. But I just gave her a cuddle and I said, look, just because I'm spending a lot of time with your brother doesn't mean that I don't love you any less. It's just because we really need to figure out what is going on. So it must have been a really scary time for her as well, to see, you know, our lives change over such a short period of space of time. And no doubt they must have noticed that, oh sorry, I've got it all going on today. They must have noticed that I was feeling a bit down and worried and anxious as well. Even though I tried to protect them from that, there's only so much you can do. I mean, there were nights where I was just crying in my sleep. It was really, really scary, especially because I didn't know what the outcome was. And also as well with Marfan's, you need to go for regular heart scans. So I didn't know what state my heart was in. My son was put on beta blockers straight away, so he's on 50 milligrams beta blockers, metropropol, I can't even pronounce it, and losartan. So he was having his heart checked straight away, and then I had to wait for my appointment. So by this point, you can understand my own well-being was just, it was very negative. I wasn't looking after myself. I wasn't eating properly because I was just constantly stressed. I was tired all the time. I had no motivation to do anything. I didn't want to talk to anyone. No one would understand, because most people just say, you know, Charlene, you know, you can get through this, you're a strong character, and, you know, look at other people who have gone through the same thing, they've managed to get through it. But those words are really not helpful at that time. For me, I had to process, and if I'm being completely honest, I had to grieve. I had to grieve for a child who I thought I had, who was healthy, to a child now who has quite serious condition, and, you know, adapting his life and my life, my daughter's life, to fit around all of this, you know, because there was huge life changes afoot, and no one can really tell you what it's like unless you've gone through it yourself. You can't really tell people how to act or feel, because when you're told that your own child is not well, that changes things. I'm sorry, but it does. And you can have as much counselling as you want, but for me, I'm still going to be crying about this in 20 years' time, because it's just an emotional subject. You know, it's a subject that's affected my life, and it's affected my children's lives and our dreams and our hopes. So I don't really want to speak about my son's journey. I think that's for him to share about how he felt. But from my perspective, being a mum, I spent time making sure that both children were positive, that, you know, we're not going to put any limitations on this. Yes, it is scary, and yes, it is frustrating. However, we need to look at some of the positives. So I was able to relate to my son when I went for my first MRI scan, and I tell you, going in that machine, it was so noisy and scary. You know, I think I did shed a tear at that moment, because it was like, wow, you know, I'm young, I'm having to take MRI scans. But I was also able to relate to my son and say, son, you're not on your own. No matter what happens, okay, I will be by your side every single step of the way. That is my role, that is my duty, but above all, that is where I want to be. And that kind of took the pressure off, I think, with him a little bit. It certainly did with me, because I knew that I could relate to him when he was tired, the hypermobility, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, the hospital appointments. I mean, by the end of it now, he loves going to the hospital because he gets a subway, you know. All he thinks about is what to have at the subway. So, you know, gradually over time, he has started to understand that this is his way of life. Don't get me wrong, we've been through so many ups and downs with him wanting to play for a football team, and, you know, having to kind of encourage him more to look at other options when it comes to employment, because he wanted to be a footballer. And, you know, that's taken a long time to get to where we are today. And it's been with the help of the school as well, and the encouragement of the teachers to show him that, you know, he does have other options in life and choices. So I'm determined to make sure he stays on the right path and he remains positive. He's 6 foot, he's size 12 feet, and, you know, the issues that he has to suffer are not going away. He's got dislocation of his lens. He has to now go and see a spinal specialist at the hospital for sclerosis. I think I've pronounced that right. And again, obviously, in 2019, we were told that his medication isn't working, his beta blockers for his heart. So I was reading through the letter, and, you know, it said relatively soon. We still don't have a date for that, but he's going to need his aortic valve replaced. So again, we have to look at all the options there as well. So our story is never ending. As a carer, it's never ending. As someone who's got disability, it's never ending. And that can have a huge toll on your mental health. And, you know, no one would blame me for wanting to give up, but I'm not going to give up. So with my own condition, growing up, I was always the skinny one that could eat a full English at 9 o'clock at night, not put on weight. You know, I could eat whatever I wanted and I would still remain skinny. I was very tall as well and gangly looking with these long arms. I was tired all the time, but I was, you know, when I was at school, I was into my running, cross country, I was into my netball, my long jump, you know, so I didn't let any of that put me off because I didn't know I had a condition. So after I got diagnosed after my son, and as I'm getting older now, I'm starting to see changes. So I go for regular eye appointments with the optician. I have regular ECG and echoes every year, and then every other year I have MRI scans. So I go to Southampton General, and you know, each time it gets easier and easier because I've accepted it as part of my life. But I must admit, there was one moment when I worked for a charity and we went for a team day in London. And I remember the day we had to do this activity where we had to walk around London and tick off all the landmarks, and you know, the team that was the quickest won the prize. So as you can imagine, walking around London, it was great. But when I got back home, I went to a supermarket to get some wine, Sauvignon Blanc, New Zealand, white. I only went for that, but I actually needed a trolley because I couldn't walk properly. I was in so much pain down the sides of my hip and my thigh, and it was due to my hypermobility. I'd just done too much. So that was when I realised that I really needed to look at my limitations. Before, I just didn't really think about that, but now I'm aware of when I get tired, and that actually was the moment that I decided to really pace myself. So I do a lot of work, and a lot of people say you need to calm down, but there's a reason for that, because I do as much work as I can, because there's going to be days when I feel quite tired and less motivated and I need my sleep. So if I'm busy on some days, at least then I know other days I can relax and rest in and take care of my body and my needs. So yeah, so it's all about, I suppose, acceptance, and then commitment to say, you know what, this is my life, and however scary it is, I need to make sure that my well-being comes first. And you know, I need to be in the strongest mindset to be able to be there for my children and for myself, because this journey is never ending. When you have a child with a disability, you don't wake up one day and all of a sudden it's gone. It's there continuously, and you need to make sure that, you know, you can help them through that journey by processing, accepting and committing. That, you know, that's so important for a child's development and an adult's development as well. You know, I just think it's really important. Also, talking to people really helped me. So I know I mentioned previously about going on Facebook and being a bit put off about all the negative comments, but there was one lady who did help me. She's helped me for the last 7 to 8 years, and this lady, I'm down south near Portsmouth, this lady was up in Birmingham. Her name's Dawn, and I really need to say a huge thank you to Dawn personally and publicly, because this lady has gone through Marfan's herself. She has 2 children, and she was there in my time of need. She was factual, she got straight to the point, and she knew that I needed time to process. So she was very easy with pointed me in the right direction with what help was out there, what services my son needed, like hydrotherapy. I didn't know anything about hydrotherapy that could help in the winter, especially with his muscles, and you know, and physiotherapy as well. So it's always important to make sure that we do talk about what we're going through, because there is always someone out there in the community who has either gone through it themselves, or they know people who can help support you. Because going through that journey, I wouldn't have been able to have done half as much if I didn't have Dawn by my side. And to this day, we're still in touch, and I did personally thank her and had a bit of a crying session because of how far we both come on this journey. And you know, she's an angel in disguise for me, so thank you, Dawn. I'm now, gosh, what can I say, I'm in the best possible place I can be mentally. I have so much support around me. It's taken a long time, I must say. It's taken about 8 years. Gosh, yeah, it is 7, 8 years, gosh, yeah, to get to where I am now. And no doubt, you know, I'm going to need more support in the future, but I have the confidence to ask for that. I know how lonely isolation is, but we must look after our well-being. We must be able to talk to others, speak to each other, because it is so important. It's so important for you to take that pressure off your shoulders as well. You know, if you're building it all up, all these worries and concerns that you have, it's not going to do you any good. It's not going to do your partner any good, or your children any good. You need to talk about it, and you need to be comfortable with saying, do you know what, I need help. Marfan syndrome is such a complex condition, which is why I really want to raise awareness, because for me, it could potentially save people's lives. And a lot of people are unaware about the condition as well. So my son is severe, but I'm mosaic, so I've got it in parts of my body, but no one can determine what parts. And I'm on 2.5 milligrams of beta blockers. I've had to change my diet because I have cardiovascular issues. I've had to change my routine, and I've had to implement a plan that's going to suit me and my family, and one that is achievable. So yeah, that's about it really. So yeah, disability and being a carer can impact our well-being, and we do need support. And I encourage you all to reach out and to keep speaking about different conditions, especially ones that are not as well known, because potentially it could save someone's life. And yeah, that's my story really. I hope that I've been clear enough. Like I say, I don't pre-plan these videos. I speak from the heart, and I kind of just want to help as many people as I can just by sharing my story. So anyway, I'm going to go now, and next week join us for our last video, which will be all about choices and motivation. I hope you all have a lovely week, and please, please, please reach out, support each other, because there is help. Don't suffer in isolation or in silence. Thank you.